Lies that killed a queen. The charges against Anne Boleyn. In this video, we're taking an in-depth look at the accusations of adultery, incest, and treason that led to her execution, and what most historians believe them to be. But before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. The spring of 1536 was a time of unease in the court of King Henry VIII. The air, heavy with the scent of blooming flowers, was also thick with whispers of dissatisfaction. The king, once besotted with his second wife, Anne Boleyn, now seemed to see her with new eyes that had grown cold and calculating. After a tumultuous 6-year pursuit and 3 years of a marriage that had failed to produce a male heir, Henry's ardor had soured into a bitter resentment. Anne, the woman who had replaced Catherine of Aragon and upended the English church, was no longer the dazzling force she had once been. She was a liability, and in a court where power was as fluid as the tides, a liability was a dangerous thing to be. The Queen's fall was as swift as her rise had been dramatic. It began subtly with the King's growing affection for one of her ladies-in-waiting, Jane Seymour. The whispers soon turned to public pronouncements of Anne's misdeeds, but these were not the minor transgressions of a flippant queen. The charges leveled against her were of the most heinous nature: adultery, incest, and treason. They were so shocking, so grotesque that they seemed to defy belief. Yet they were the very charges that would lead to her swift conviction and execution. The story of Anne Boleyn's final days is a chilling tale of political maneuvering, personal betrayal, and a legal system bent to the will of a monarch. But for centuries, historians have grappled with a central question. Were these charges true, or were they, as most now believe, a series of lies crafted to justify the murder of a queen? The accusations against Anne began to take shape in April 1536. A musician at court, Mark Smeaton, was arrested and interrogated. Under duress and possibly torture, he confessed to having committed adultery with the queen. His confession was the flimsy thread from which a wider, more elaborate web of deceit was woven. Soon after, others were arrested. Sir Henry Norris, a close friend of the king; Sir Francis Weston, a young and charming gentleman of the Privy Chamber; William Brereton, a groom of the Privy Chamber; and even Anne's own brother, George Boleyn, Lord Rochford. The charges were dizzying in their scope, suggesting that Anne had engaged in illicit affairs with these men over a period of several months, and in some cases, years. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Anne Boleyn and her brother George were accused of something that was considered very, very wrong back in their time. The people who wanted to get rid of Anne made up a story that she and her brother were being too close, in a way that families are not supposed to be. They told all sorts of made-up details to make the story seem real and to get people to believe it. Anne was said to have used her power and influence to manipulate these men into her bedchamber. The indictment against her listed a series of dates and locations where these supposed trysts occurred. In the case of Henry Norris, the indictment claimed that he had planned to marry Anne if the king were to die. The most damning evidence, however, was the supposed confession of Mark Smeaton, who, unlike the others, did not retract his statement. The fact that the other men, including her brother, steadfastly maintained their innocence, even in the face of torture and the promise of their lives, is a powerful testament to their belief in her innocence. The fact that Smeaton was a commoner and not a gentleman of the court also casts a shadow of doubt over his confession. Why would a queen of Anne's stature risk a relationship with a low-ranking musician, a man who could easily be broken and made to confess? It seems highly improbable. The trial itself was a travesty of justice. The accused were not allowed to call witnesses in their defense, nor were they allowed to cross-examine their accusers. The evidence presented was circumstantial at best, and the main thrust of the prosecution's case rested on the so-called confessions and the rumors that had been circulating for weeks. George Boleyn, a man known for his quick wit and legal acumen, famously and eloquently defended himself, dismantling the accusations against him and his sister piece by piece. Yet, despite his masterful defense and the unwavering pleas of innocence from the other men, all were found guilty. The verdicts were predetermined, a foregone conclusion in a court that was less about justice and more about the king's will. The charges were not just a matter of personal scandal. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. They were also a matter of treason. The indictment against Anne and her alleged lover stated that their acts of adultery constituted high treason because they had imagined and compassed the king's death. This was based on the premise that their acts would lead to the birth of a bastard heir, thereby endangering the legitimate succession to the throne. The incest charge, too, was a form of treason, a crime against the crown itself. But the most revealing aspect of the treason charge was its focus on the succession. Henry's desperate need for a male heir was the driving force behind his break from the Catholic Church and his marriage to Anne. With their marriage producing only a daughter, Princess Elizabeth, and the recent miscarriage of a son, Henry's patience had worn thin. He needed to be free of Anne to marry again and try for a son with Jane Seymour. The charges of treason, therefore, were a convenient legal mechanism to annul the marriage and execute the Queen, all in one fell swoop. So, why do most historians believe these charges to be fabricated? The evidence or lack thereof speaks volumes. There is no reliable record of any of the accused men's confessions except for the dubious one of Mark Smeaton. The men who went to the scaffold, Norris, Weston, Brereton, and George Boleyn, all maintained their innocence to the very end. The charges of incest in particular are viewed with deep skepticism. It is a charge that seems too calculated, too grotesque, to be anything but a deliberate fabrication designed to make Anne's actions seem all the more heinous, and her character all the more debauched. It was a charge designed to turn public opinion against her and make her a monster in the eyes of the people. Furthermore, the legal and political context of the time provides a crucial lens through which to view these events. The break with the Catholic Church was still a fragile and controversial act. Anne Boleyn was a symbol of this schism. Her downfall served a dual purpose. It removed a queen who had failed to produce a male heir, and it also allowed Henry to distance himself from the more radical elements of the Protestant movement that Anne was associated with. Thomas Cromwell, Henry's chief minister, is often cited as the mastermind behind Anne's downfall. His motives were complex, a mix of political ambition and a desire to consolidate his own power. It is a testament to Cromwell's ruthlessness and cunning that he was able to orchestrate such a swift and brutal removal of a queen. In the end, the charges against Anne Boleyn were not a reflection of her character, but a mirror of the king's desperation and the machinations of a court consumed by power. The legal proceedings were a sham, a choreographed performance designed to justify a decision that had already been made. Anne Boleyn, a woman of intelligence, ambition, and a fiery spirit, was not killed for her crimes, but for her failure to fulfill a man's expectations. The accusations of adultery, incest, and treason were not the cause of her death. They were the convenient and brutal means to an end. On a cold May morning in 1536, Anne Boleyn walked to the scaffold at the Tower of London, a queen condemned by lies, a victim of a system that valued power over truth. Her final eloquent speech, in which she did not confess but rather prayed for the king, serves as a poignant and enduring testament to her innocence. The lies that killed a queen may have succeeded in their immediate purpose, but they could not silence the truth that would, centuries later, exonerate her in the eyes of history. If you found this guide helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more content. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when we release our next travel adventure. Thanks for watching! Again, thank you for watching, we appreciate your patronage, and please ring that bell to receive notification on new videos. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help us grow our channel. Thank you for watching, and ring that bell to receive notification on new videos.